Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, y'all.
Good morning.
Good to see you. We got everybody here, but Shannon went back on daylight savings, so we may not see Shannon again for a while. It makes it tough for him to be here when he's not. Didn't go back on daylight savings. He went. Well, I guess it is daylight savings for him, isn't it? Anyway, it changed. His time deal changed. So, hey, Gail.
Morning, Gail.
I see
the blue line.
I see she
smile on
that for everybody.
There's your cameo.
So anyway, I hope everybody had a good week, and I'll let Steve run down the roster this morning.
Yeah, we got to
get into stuff.
Yeah. Good morning, Allison. Had Jason stop by. Jason Train Freak. Digger, good morning. And we got Kyle Stevens, Dave DES Multimedia. And we got Rob T-Man. We got Roy Hardwick, Container Man. What are you up to? John Tanzillo and Lynn McCurdy. And we got Steven at Wigwag. And John Grandpa Rails. And I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah.
Fred Wild's here.
Oh,
Wilmer. Wilmer. Miss Wilmer. Good morning, Wilmer.
Yeah, I'm behind.
Good morning, Wilmer. Yeah.
How about physical Dave?
Good morning.
Georgia Sunbelt. Anthony just popped in.
And Almar. Good morning.
Almar. Good morning.
Anthony's here.
Yeah.
I see Anthony.
Steve Anderson. Good morning, Steve.
Got a good group. Good group of guys. Anyway, we don't really have anything planned today, and I will explain the thumbnail you saw for the show. That is a little sneak peek of next week's guest. His name is Sammy Carlisle, and he's got the layout. I went up last Sunday and saw his layout northwest of town here, and he's got a really, really nice layout. It's a prototypical layout. He has operations on it, and you definitely want to be here to see that. He's got a really nice layout. Anyway, other than that, we don't have anything to talk about.
Well, Steve's back with his N scale. That's the first time we've seen that in a long time.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it running. It's running like crap.
Just push it around, Steve.
Use the 050.
I've been trying to get stuff running out here for 2 hours this morning. It derails everything, but no, I'm trying to get it cleaned up.
I told you got mud daubers in it, man.
No mud daubers, spiders.
Spiders.
Yeah, I think it's been probably 15, 16 months since I actually ran anything out here.
I'll tell you, spiders are the real deal. If anyone in chat or in the show has a good suggestion on spider prevention on the layout, I would be interested in knowing about it. I'm the same way. They're just these little itty bitty mite-sized spiders that from 3 feet away you can't really see anything, but the second you take a picture or get a close-up anywhere, all of a sudden you see Herman Munster's village.
Isn't there like a spray you can spray for spiders?
I mean, I've got some spider spray, but it's not. I would think that from a layout you'd want a mist of some kind, not like I wouldn't want to put what I've got.
Most of those have oils in them.
Right.
Maybe mist on the bottom, like on the corners or under the layout or something in the room.
So, I know what I've done in the past is, and it hasn't been directly around the layouts, is I've used those bug bombs that are the small cans that just are the fog. But what I have found in the past is that if I'm doing it for like a part of the house, seal the house up and leave for the day, if I leave a door open so that it can kind of waif into the garage, it tends to take care of the problem. It doesn't have to be direct contact. Now, I haven't done that for a while, and as the folks that visited me last weekend could attest, I was running my end scale. I had a train. I had to run it for for about a month, and went into a tunnel, and it came out in front of the engine covered in spider webs.
Oh, okay. That's not so bad. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that movie that William Shatner made, and I can't. The title of it is out of my head right now, but it was about spiders covering this whole town, and that's what I think of when I see stuff like that.
Well, Shannon says, well, by the way, Shannon, what are you doing in chat, not on the show? He says lavender.
Lavender, take care of it. There you go. And it'll smell nice. The wife would love it.
I hate lavender. I hate the smell.
In what form?
Well, Steve's a spider too.
That's like lavender oil or something. I don't know.
Well, he
Yeah, there's probably something you can use.
Maybe an air freshener or spray, or
something. You can probably find something that'll keep them out.
Get some flowers.
Is it lavender flowers or lavender essence?
Yeah.
Okay, Shannon. Oh, by the way, Shannon, I shipped your 2 locomotives for you yesterday. Shannon got all the stuff I shipped to him, and then I got a message yesterday that he said, "Where are my sharks? I got 2 sharks." It's like, they should have been in there, but they weren't. So I came out here and looked, and I had everything in a box stuck right under here. And I had put his 2 sharks next to the box. They were in little jewel cases, all nice and safe. And I shipped the box and left his sharks here. So I had to go back and ship his 2 sharks yesterday. And it cost almost as much to ship those as it did the whole box to Australia. So I've got a tracking number for you, Shannon. I'll get it for you, but they're on their way.
Okay, now Digger says spiders don't like citrus or mint. Is that just UK spiders, or is that all spiders?
Probably all spiders.
It's probably all spiders, yeah.
The ones in the UK just have a funny accent.
Yeah. Oh no, this place seriously looked like if I stuck my layout in the living room of the Munsters, that's what it looked like.
Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody, Steve's not the only one in his normal spot this morning. Bill's in Iowa, and you got stuff to show us from the hobby shop.
Yeah, I do. I've been in Iowa. Well, I drove up Tuesday and Wednesday, and visiting Mom, like we were talking before the show. Physically, her health not bad for 94. She's pretty much confined to a wheelchair, but she can get around. Mentally, the dementia, it just doesn't get better. So I've been to the hobby shop a couple of times. I'm going to go there after the show here again today, and have some fun up there, and then go see Mom again. But real quick, since Shannon is on, Shannon, we were talking about ON30 engines that your shop has. After that conversation a couple of weeks ago, I actually went on eBay just to see what was out there. Ended up getting a Shay off of eBay for $100 US less than what the shop in Australia had. So won't be getting any ON30 from you, unfortunately. But I got a Shay, and it has sound. And if we were back in Virginia, I'd show you how that is. But so what I've picked up at the hobby shop is a lot of stuff that I had been buying on their shows over the past few weeks. So a variety of stuff from different scales. So O scale, I got HO, and they were having these in what they call their pizza boxes, which is kind of like their used stuff. They've got KD couplers on them, all Pennsylvania, $1 a piece. The wheel sets are missing, so I've got to get wheels. But for $1 a car, I figured I could.
Heck yeah.
That $2 maintenance of weigh car. And I got a variety of other stuff over here. N scale cars. This I'm going to use a little canoe, and I think I can make it look decent in that little small corner where I'm going to have a water scene on the O scale, where it's going to be on a sandbar. Got this for like $1.50. It's like a Lionel O scale, grader, but I can paint that up and it'd be a nice little background model. World War II Jeep. And that's the first box. Second thing is I bought this. They had this advertised on their O-Scale show a couple of weeks ago. So it's a 260 heavy, solid metal, not brass, but solid metal O-Scale 2-rail Pennsylvania. And what's nice is I have an HO scale engine similar to this and an N scale engine similar to this. And I've talked in the past that with my layouts, I can have continuity between the different layouts by running reasonably similar trains. So I'll be able to do an O scale train that will be able to do similar to an HO scale train that'll be similar to an N scale train. So I can have some fun doing it from the different layouts. Over here, more stuff from the hobby shop. I got just a box of metal parts or plastic bits and pieces for a couple of bucks. Some HO scale cars, some modeling powder. I'm going to be making some weeds on the layout, including the parts that I've already done. And I'm going to use these as sort of the top coating on some of the weeds to make like little flowers. So I'll only, maybe a fraction like what I'm showing here, but this is a pretty good deal. This I thought was pretty Rustall, and got it for $2, brand new. It's never been out of the package. So I will play with that. That should be fun to do with some stuff. Some O-scale vehicles, more HO scale cars, O-scale cars, nice tanker, nice rock island. Some more N-scale stuff. And then I got this, which is a smoke generator. It's an HO scale smoke generator. But what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to get a metal drum, kind of like what I did at the cabin scene. And I'm going to put this in it. It's going to be a metal drum, not the plastic one, so that I can have like a burn barrel and actually have smoke come out of it. So,
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It'd be cool.
And some more, N-scale cars here and here thrown around. There's a little O-scale siphon cart that's going to go near the O-scale engine area for the 30. I've got a lot, so I've been having fun. And then in here is the gift certificate for my contest that I got from the hobby shop. So those that have watched my channel know I'm having a contest for guessing the number of trees, and there's the gift certificate for that for Caboose Stop Hobbies. So whoever gets closest, I'm going to get that. So that's what I've been up to this week.
Good.
Cool.
Ali
said that looked like canola in the bag.
It does kind of look like canola.
Highlighting
powder. It should be kind of fun. I was thinking about it, and I've got a new way I'm going to try to make some like weeds and some undergrowth, where you're driving down the highways and you see all the little flowers and you see yellows and reds. So I'm going to start with some yellow and just see if they look good, and then maybe I'll get some red powder like this too to make some different. But that'll be down the road, and I'll put it on as episodes on my channel. When I get to that point.
Phil, that's a pretty light haul for you, man.
I'm going back today, so I'm sure I'm going to add to it. No doubt about it.
All right, don't let us down.
Yeah, it looks like Heath is in the chat now.
Hey, Heath.
And there's other people that showed up as well.
Well, so Dennis, what have you been working on? I have to tell everybody I fell asleep during Dennis's video on Thursday night.
Here's what I'm going to try and do.
Not because you were boring though. I'd
Sure,
kind of heard all that already. But I did fall asleep. Okay, your turn, Dennis.
Okay, well, I wanted to try and open this up on my cell phone so I don't have to try and drag my computer into the other room. It doesn't look like it's going to open on my cell phone. Let me try this instead. Where's it at? Start the Jeopardy music.
Well, I'll take you off solo there, so it won't make anybody sick. You got to move it around.
Dum 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 dum.
Wait a minute, where's the trombone?
Oh, don't
Could have played that on the trombone.
We don't want to go there again, do we?
Yeah, why not?
Sure, I thought it was funny.
It'd be funnier if I could play it.
Something tells me it sounded about the same when you played as a kid.
It probably did.
Okay, Dennis has got another whole one up here. Okay, here he is.
All right. Now, unfortunately, the sunlight's going to kind of mess with the settings here, but this is what I've got going on at the moment. I've been working on the town and getting all the track laid. So the track is laid permanently for this spur, and then I'm still messing around with this down here, just kind of seeing how things look. Let's see here. Here's a project in process. This is going to be a freight dock. I think the overall height is still wrong. I think I need to chop, another ½ inch or so off the bottom and figure out really how tall it is. And that's just there for kind of reference. But down here, I've got this industry kind of figured out. I think this is essentially how it's going to be.
So, Dennis.
Yeah.
Will those buildings that you've scratch built, are they representative of what you're going to build in?
Like this one?
Any of them?
Well,
are the cardstock ones going to be the buildings that you're going to use, or they're just?
Well, this one will be, and all of those will be.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll have more down here that I will probably build this week that will be, but all of these are just there to reference.
So you'll build other buildings in that exact style?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay.
If so, this is essentially what I'm trying to represent, something along those lines. And right now, one of the things that I haven't quite figured out yet, you can kind of see, and I apologize for moving so much, you can kind of see what I'm trying to do. Of course, there's no track in my reference photos, but that street breaks away at a different angle over here. So one of the things that I'm going to do probably this weekend is that this building right here, I believe that's one building, two shops. I'm going to figure out what the distance is here so I know exactly what this angle is.
Is that a map
once
you
I
made?
do what?
Is that a map you made?
No, this is a Library of Congress, what they call Sanborn maps.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to say, man, that's pretty detailed there.
But once I figure out the angle of this, my plan is to go ahead and mock up this building this weekend and then get it put in just on the other side of these buildings here, that I'll have what angle that should be, because this spur and that spur they're still wild, so to speak. I haven't got that permanently set in yet. And then this will get so I can block the light so you can kind of see it. This will get skinned up, and it'll probably be the first scratch build that I complete, because I'm pretty close to having it all figured out. And
So you'll actually use that?
Siding. Do what?
You'll actually use that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you go in with clapboard siding on the side, and then, I don't know what I'll use on the roof. If I've got real thin plywood or basswood, I guess is what I mean. I'll use basswood for the roofs, and then, a tar paper roof or even shake shingles. And then the dock, of course, I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do about the dock, but it will be scratch built as well. This is just for reference and for footprint, but I will probably build the dock all out of sticks. But that's where I'm at right now. I think it's looking pretty cool, because when you come around the bend, you're gonna be walking this way, and the railroad is making a curve radius into this area. So this is kind of the first viewing of the scene that you're going to see. So I deliberately wanted this to not be parallel with the fascia.
Yeah, it's going to be a cool scene.
Yeah, that'll look good with all those buildings.
Yeah, and of course this here will be a dock, like a team track, and it will be such that you can drive on and off with a team of mules. That's the idea there. And I don't know if I've mentioned it, but all of this is going to go uphill, and then I plan on having another row of buildings or similar on the backside. So, there'd probably be like between a 4 and a 5 foot difference between that end of this row of buildings and this end. Maybe more. I haven't decided yet.
Kind of like your photo.
Exactly like the photo. It's kind of hard to see in the photo.
No, I can see what's going on there.
But you can actually, if you look close, you can see this end of this building. You can see how much the street drops down and whatever distance that is.
Yeah.
And of course, all of this up here.
Cool.
That's where I'm at right now. Nothing else has changed inside the layout room. It's all kind of the exact same.
Well, you got your bench work up over there.
Do what?
You got the bench work up over there by your workbench. Right there.
Yeah, that's where the spray booth is going to go.
I think 1-to-1. Heath wants to know: did you say 5 feet in scale dimension or 1-to-1? I think he means 1-to-1.
What's he in reference to?
I guess your street that you're doing there. That difference of elevation.
Well, it would be in scale feet, right? I mean, I don't know. And one of the things I'll do is I'll go into Google Maps, and I think that you can get the elevation. And so once I figure out what the elevation is on the far right-hand side of that scene, then can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
You muted yourself.
I'm gonna have to. That's not turning off.
Oh, okay.
No, I muted his phone mic, so he didn't get a double.
Okay. I'm still getting it.
Still getting an echo.
Echo.
Yeah, let me do this.
Well, he's probably got his speakers on his phone, or what's causing it, probably.
So Dennis, another thing that you could do for elevation is find a USGS topographic map. You'd be able to get your elevations off that to be pretty darn close.
What happened here? I don't know what happened there. Nobody wants to see my face. Yeah, that's gonna look nice, especially when you get the buildings up behind it too, and then the mountain behind that.
About now.
You're good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I've got to do is find the elevation at one end of the street, and the approximate elevation at the other end of the street, find out if it's going to work for me. Because, you know, everything's I'm probably going to have to compress it some. But if it works out, like right now, I think it's actually pretty close to the actual scale dimensions from one end to the other end. If I can make all that work, then I think I can also make the elevation the same. That's what I'm going to shoot for anyway.
Even if it just kind of closely works,
Right.
doesn't have to work exactly.
The whole idea behind that whole scene is I want lots of different converging angles and things that are very photographic, and that way you can see more than just one side of the building, which is kind of typical of a lot of model railroads, that everything's running parallel with the fascia, which is just kind of the way things have to be a lot of times, just because of space restrictions.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to deliberately obscure that phenomenon where, even though you are walking right next to the fascia, I don't want any of the tracks or the buildings to necessarily be right next to the fascia or parallel with it. I mean, going to have to be next to it, but not parallel with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to do that a little bit more with with my the mining district that I'm doing, and trying not to put too much track in it. I almost put a turntable up there, and then I thought, no, I don't want to do that, because I've got a siding that they can run around on, and then they're coming off the Y at the top of it, so I don't really need the turntable in there. But yeah, I was starting to pack more, thinking about putting more and more track in it, that narrow space. And I thought, no, leave it simple. It'll look better.
Yes. Less sometimes is more.
Yeah. Sometimes it works a lot better.
Yeah, you definitely want to leave some areas. I'm one that I pack as much as I can in many areas, but then you want to have quiet areas where it's just a track, your scenery or buildings that you want to highlight, so that it gives the eye, something to focus on rather than trying to take it all in.
Right.
Yeah. And it's about what you're trying to accomplish. If you're needing the track there because you got to have it for operation or whatever, that's one thing, but to just pack it full just to have more track on a layout, I think that's where we get stuck a lot of times. And you'll see one of the books, Colin books that it's been out there for decades, is the 101 track plans. And the first third of the book is small track plans, and they're all in little bitty tiny flat boards, and they've got so much track packed into it that you can't hardly do any scenery on it because of that.
Yeah.
But there again, it's, what do you want out of it? Do you want just a loop of track, or do you want more there?
Exactly.
Yeah. And your room, how much room you've got to do. Dennis has got a ton of room to work with, so he's lucky in that regard. Excuse me.
Fortunate.
So, Jerry, what have you been doing? Have you been working on yours?
Well, Sunday, Rick and I worked on his little coffee table layout. Prior to that, we're doing his mountains. I don't have any photos to show you, sorry.
What that coffee table layout? That's the one you guys did with the foam and.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the last time we worked on it prior to Sunday, we ran out of what is that? Plaster cloth. We ran out of plaster cloth, and one of the guys, we were live streaming at the time, and somebody had suggested use paper towels and do the same thing. Man, that didn't work too good, man. It's just I don't know.
Well, the trick with the paper towels is you can use the cheap paper towels, but don't oversaturate them. I mean, you just dip them in and put them on. Don't let them sit there and soak too long; they'll fall apart.
Yeah, I don't know. They never really got really hard, kind of, not like plaster cloth hard, and they were like starting to like fray, They didn't work.
I'm wondering if you had enough plaster in your mix.
I never did it.
Because the one problem with using paper towels is the plaster tends to harden in 10 minutes.
Right.
So you've got to do it in small batches, and you got to have enough plaster in it that it will harden up. Because there again, I have had it where it wasn't hard enough, and it was real runny and drippy and hard to work with because of that. But most of my mountain is paper towels.
Oh, really? So it didn't work out good for whatever reason. I don't know. So last Sunday we took all that out and used plaster cloth, and that worked.
Yeah. Plaster cloth's much easier to use.
Yeah, I mean it worked out pretty.
See, I'm thinking about using
better.
cheesecloth.
Cheesecloth? Maybe
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to cut it up in sheets?
Well, I mean, I haven't really got that far yet, but on my spline through, on the way to Silver Gulch, that's going to be visible. I may go back in and actually cut the track out and lay the plaster cloth on top of the roadbed, on top of the spline, then come back in and lay the track on top of what's been laid on the plaster cloth. I haven't decided yet. That's just something I'm kind of having the back of my mind. That way, your landforms are actually become part of the spline. What are you thinking, Claude?
Oh, he's laughing.
I'm thinking you're not going to like that when it hardens.
Yeah.
Why?
An option. I was going to say an option you could do, because I know you've talked about that in the past, Dennis, on how you wanted to do it. And just throwing this out there is to take like a little bit of pink foam board and rip it into maybe like an inch strip, and you could even angle it and hot glue it to each side of your spline that's visible, so that you've got a small area where you can tack things on to build up your scenery without having to do anything with your track work.
Yeah, you can do the same thing with the cardboard lattice if you're going to go that way, or screen wire, or whatever you're going to use for your substructure. I would attach it to the side of the spline and go from there. I think you're gonna hate it if you
use the cheesecloth over top of the roadbed. Have you seen anyone who's done that?
No.
It looks beautiful.
Well, I'm sure it does, but you can get pretty close with just ground product, ground foam stuff and ballast and everything else. You're going to cover all that anyway, pretty much.
You guys,
the problem that you're going to run into, especially on HON3 track, is uneven roadbed. And yeah, you can put it up there and then sand it down, but then you're going to sand through the cheesecloth to get it level. So that's the only problem I see there. But if you're real careful, you could probably pull it off.
Yeah. Well, and the ones that I've seen, they've gone with cork on top of the cheese.
Ah, okay. Well, that's cheating.
Right. Which I've already got cork, and I probably won't do it just for that reason, because it would require me take the track off, the cork off, sand down the spline again, and then go on with the cheesecloth and put cork back on.
By the way, I've got a bunch of N-scale cork if you want it.
Okay.
I'm not going to use a lot of it. The rest of what I'm doing is going to be sheet cork. So I may use a little bit of it, but not much.
Yeah, but I'm still a ways away from even thinking about doing that. That won't be anything I do probably until all of the track work is laid up into what's on top of the.
But see, if you're putting, that's the thing. If you're going to put cork over the top of it, then I don't really see the reason for going underneath the roadbed with the cloth and plaster. You could go to the side of it just as easily.
You mean on top of the roadbed?
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of going
well, and again, for me, it would be. I just think that it would be a seamless terrain, and my thought is that there's going to be a lot less work with Sculptamold and things that you're going to have to fill gaps and because the cheesecloth will make its own terrain, and there'll just be a lot less having to use sculpt-a-mold and things like that. That's the biggest draw for me. The idea that it's all going to be seamless, and it's just a matter of going back in with paint and creating what other landforms you want on top of it.
So John Tanzilla says he uses it.
Cheesecloth?
Cheesecloth, yeah. And he says do a test.
Yeah, it's it just seems like it's an unnecessary move, in my opinion. But what do I?
I'm sure it would work.
And Keith is absolutely right. If I choose to do it, there will be a test before I make that decision. That's absolutely true. I would come up with, like maybe a 2-foot chunk of plywood with 5 splines together, and then some Walmart bags, because that's what I want to lay the cheesecloth on top of. Is some Walmart bags, and or also in conjunction with some cardboard strips, so I can see what differences happen between the two, and see what it looks like. Yeah. So yeah, there would definitely be a test before I go that route.
It sounds like it would be a good application prior to putting the track down. But as you noted, since you've already got yours down, it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right. And, about that long, I considered it before I laid the track, but I thought, there's a chance that my trains won't pull this grade. And really, I probably could have convinced myself that there was going to be no issues there, because all of my research at that point was that the trains aren't going to have any problems. But I had to actually see the trains go before I was convinced that there wasn't going to be any problem.
Yeah.
But now, I don't think it wouldn't be that big of it. I could have all of that track off, and the cork, and the latex or the silicone that I use to lay the track in probably less than 10 minutes in the 2 areas I've got the track laid. Because really, we're talking about probably less than 8 linear feet that I would be doing that on.
So it might be worth that. It
might be. I'll test when it comes time to make the decision of how I want to approach the scenery in that area. I will test probably before I do.
Well, the one thing I would caution, and you probably already know this, but
I just happened to read that John said that Utah, Colorado, and Western uses cheesecloth. I think that's the very layout that I got all of that idea from, which I think it's a little hard to find that layout now, because I think he's been in magazines, and some of the pictures may have been scrubbed. I don't know.
Well, the one thing, and you probably already know this because you've been using the microengineering flex track from the start, but I found out pretty fast that it was much harder to get rail joiners together on stuff like on the flex track, because the ties would want to come off real easy. And you have to be very careful, because their spikes on their plastic ties are so small that it'll pop off just real easy, and the rail, come out, and then it's really hard to get it back in there. So
you can't have any tension.
Trying to cut something that's down already, that's where I'm thinking, I don't know that you'd want to do that. If it's running good now, I would go off the sides and go from there.
Yeah.
But, it's your layout, not mine. So.
Yeah, man, if it's running, don't mess it up.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be messing it up. It would just be making a change. That's the way I would view it. I would be and I wouldn't do it unless I really thought that the effort would be worthwhile. So as he said, test.
Dennis likes a challenge, okay?
I do. I do
like
know
that right now.
Yeah. Oh, he says use plastic window screen. I think he's talking about fiberglass window screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fiberglass. It's not Heath, it was Roy.
Yeah, there's quite a few good comments in the chat. We probably need to scroll back and take a look at.
Yeah, I was trying to look at them, but I kept listening to you instead of instead of watching chat. But yeah, the window screen works good. Cheesecloth would work too. You're still going to have some support for it, to lay it over. And that's where I liked the cardboard strips. Those were easy to put on. Depending on what kind of scenery you're going to put on top of it, it can be a little bit of a challenge. I ran into that a little bit, but it makes a good, once you get it on there and put it together, weave together, it's pretty firm. So you can lay, quite a bit of plaster on it and not worry about it. Yeah, Jeff, the railroad enthusiast, once you lay all your track down and hooked up to power, it would be a great idea just to run a test locomotive by itself to see if there are any defects in the track.
Yeah, that's been done.
And I spent an hour yesterday fixing one of my curved turnouts that came out of the jig, and it looked really good, but I got it on the layout, and what I ran into were the points. Of course, the points are curved on a curved turnout. They have a tendency, if you don't get them pre-bent just right, and have a tendency to be too tight. And so they were pushing one side of the wheels off. They were riding up over the point and wanting to derail right there. So I spent an hour yesterday readjusting. But that's the nice thing about the fast checks turnouts too, is you can do that kind of thing. You can go in there and fine tune it, and now it runs perfectly. So,
and kind of similar to that, I know you've probably watched Dawn on Nearly Historical Railroad. You can pick guardrails prior to those turnouts that will help get the alignment of the wheels where they need to be. If all of your slack is one way coming around a radius, you can adjust that a little bit back and make it so you don't pick the rails.
Put it on you put a little guardrail just in front of the point on the inside of the curve, and it helps them make sure you pick that point up. But that's not where my problem was. My problem was with the far side point on the outside of the curve was wanting to stay straighter. So I actually ended up unsoldering that point and curving it a little bit more and soldering it back down. But then I still had to move one of the stock rails a little bit to get it to go to the gauge, NMRA gauge. But once I did that, they go through there just fine, forward and backwards. You got to test your track work once you get it down before you get too far. You don't want to put scenery down before you've actually tested it, because chances are you're going to have some place you're going to have to fix it.
Right. See, John says he glued strips of foam to his spline helix to widen it for scenery, which I think is what Bill mentioned earlier. Doing thin strips of foam.
Well, there's a
chicken wire.
Like window screen wire.
No, I guess, or like chicken wire.
You could use chicken wire. I think it would be a little hard to work with. It'd be harder to work with than like the window screen wire, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen people use hardware wire too, which is the little 1/4-inch square wire that you use to keep rabbits out of your garden.
Yeah,
but that's tough to bend.
Yeah, you can't bend
that kind of sharp angle.
But Steve 87 said something about Hobby Lobby has a metal mesh. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's why my layout's flat.
So John says he puts cheesecloth over the cardboard strips and then covered that with plaster cloth.
Yeah.
Did you paint on plaster over your cheesecloth as well? That's how I've seen it applied, is that once you get your cheesecloth laid on there, you go in with thin plaster and literally with a paintbrush, you paint on the plaster.
I've not seen it done that way. I would think that'd be a little tougher to do.
So
I could see putting the cheesecloth over the cardboard to help keep the plaster from dripping underneath, because that's one thing you have to keep in mind. If you've got any track underneath where you're plastering, even if you're going through a webbing or whatever, you want to cover that track, because you don't want plaster down in there and have to try and get that out after it's hardened. It's a lot tougher.
It's been a while since I looked at the website, but my recollection is the couple of layouts that I was, checking out in the process, they literally made up very thin batches of plaster and painted it on.
Yeah.
So do you dip the cheesecloth in the plaster mix?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you drape it over dry and you staple it up wherever it needs to go. And then, like John is saying, that after he did that, then he went on with the either plaster cloth or paper towels or whatever method that is. And I guess that keeps if I'm understanding, like he and Claude, I think, are saying the same thing, that it keeps all of your plaster from going everywhere when you actually put it on.
Yeah, you get from dripping helter skelter underneath what you're putting it over.
Yeah.
I had a question for John on that. John, do you mist the cheesecloth before you put the plaster on? Now, if you're putting on sheets, I don't guess you would have to, but I would think that would help get it to adhere to the cheesecloth a little bit if you moistened it.
Yeah. He says he tried it that way, and the brushed on plaster dripped through onto the area below. So definitely, if you have a scenic area, you wouldn't probably want to do that, at least not without a drop cloth.
Yeah, you just want to cover what's underneath. If you don't want plaster on it, cover it, because I'm gonna be plastered my mining district is all going to get plastered with plaster cloth is what I'm going to end up using. It'll be a lot easier up there, but I've got to drape a sheet. Actually, I'm going to suspend a sheet all underneath that, so it doesn't drip down in my cattle area, because all that stuff's laying underneath it. So I've got to protect that. I'll probably put a thin plastic paint drop cloth over the top of that scenery, and then put the sheet above that to catch the bulk of it that would drop there. But anything that would get through the sheet then gets to the plastic.
I have a question for Dennis and Claude. These areas that you're going to use, whatever method you're using for cheesecloth or cardboard, are they mountain areas? Is that what you're trying to mimic?
Yeah, at least my area will definitely be dynamic in the shaping of it. There would be no need to do any of this for a flat piece of plywood.
Right. So now my next question is, Bill, why did you choose to do the styrofoam, the foam like you did?
For mine, it was just personal preference. I'd been working with the pink foam board on the N scale layout, and I knew I could get my basic shape in place. And then, I go with Sculptamold rather than plaster as my base. And the Sculptamold, if you make it into the consistency of sort of dried oatmeal, it sticks and you can build the forms. And then I do the skim coat of plaster on top. So, same goal, but just a little bit of a different process.
Just a different way to get there.
So, like, I've never seen anybody do all the chunks of rigid foam like you did before, and I thought that was going to be cool.
I did.
You did? Did you really?
Yeah, my mountain, the whole top, probably this much of the top of my mountain is all foam board.
Okay.
When I got up so high with the rigid support structure underneath, then I laid a piece of foam board, pretty good size, on top of that. Then I built that up with foam board pieces.
Now I've seen people layer the foam and then carve the foam, but I've never seen anybody put the foam vertical like you did, Bill.
Yeah,
I've
seen a
doing
few
both.
people. that have done that. You know, it's like everything else in model railroading. There are probably 20 ways of doing something different and still get the same result. You know, as new stuff comes out, people just experiment. So, you know, I'm not saying that I'm a pioneer by any chance, any stretch. You know, it's just having fun with what we're working with to get different results.
Sure. John says he tried it that way, Dennis, and the brushed plaster dripped through to the area below. So you definitely want to cover everything. And he also said he doesn't miss the cheesecloth, but that he glued it to the cardboard strips, so it's very hard when so it's very well. You don't put glue on all the cheesecloth though. You just glue it to the cardboard and it's stretched tight. I'm assuming that's what it sounds like, but let me know what you actually did. I'm assuming that's how you did it.
John Tanzilla, I have a question for you. Did you do videos of this process on your channel?
Yeah, that'd be good to see.
Yeah,
I did that.
I know he's got videos of his spline because I went and checked all those out, and his spline, I forget how many, you know, for his a lot of spline glued together.
Now, Roy says if it's a little more like pancake batter, it shouldn't drip through the paper towel. No, it won't drip through the paper towel, but you're going to pick it up out of the plaster and it's going to be dripping, and then you're going to drape it on, and your hands and everything else have plaster on it. There's going to get plaster through. Trust me. Trust me, because I had to dig a lot.
Yeah, but kind of going back to what Jerry was talking about with Bill, I'm going to do both. You know, what I'm thinking is that in areas where I'm going to have sheer rock walls, I think the best way to accomplish that. And then for a rolling mountain, you know, maybe where the beginning of that sheer rock wall is, then the cheesecloth and or cardboard strips, whatever it takes to get to that area. I want to use a collage of those two methods.
Yeah, that'll give you good results.
Steve, what do you use on yours?
I use a white foam board.
White foam board, huh? Oh, that's right. It was really messy.
Foam board.
Yeah, like no storm. That was cheap. I was cheap. I had it and I used it.
Yeah, that's the last thing I would use.
No, I did that and Sculptimo.
Because not only does it get everywhere, but it sticks to everything it gets on from the static electricity.
Oh, it's a mess. But yeah, I did that and then the Sculptimo over the top of that.
And John uses the inexpensive medical plaster cloth from Amazon. Yeah, there's a lot of places you can find it fairly inexpensive. I found somebody on eBay selling it that was actually cheaper than what they had on Amazon. I think he must have bought a bunch of it and then didn't need it and put it on eBay, and I happened to find it. But I've also bought it from Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby carries some pretty good bulk and, you know, $10 packages, and that's not too bad if you don't need a lot. Oh,
you're going to need a lot, though, right, Dennis?
Yeah,
it's going to need a truckload. Steve Anderson said, you know, I think it was BC Rail or someone in the Great White North used craft paper. Yeah, anything with holes is going to leak. Yeah, anything with holes has got a chance to leak, and even craft paper, unless it's real heavy craft paper, if you're getting it wet, there's always a chance it's going to leak through.
Yeah.
So you always want to cover what's underneath if you don't want it getting plaster on it, or plaster. You know, even thin plaster water can be a nuisance.
Yeah.
So you want to cover.
Remember if
you're using plaster.
What was the Great Western Rail? Whoever it is that I saw the cheesecloth for the first, I'm trying to remember if maybe he didn't actually paint the cheesecloth first to help seal it up. I can't really remember, but I didn't remember him suggesting that there was an issue with a bunch of drippage coming through, which, you know, for me, it's not going to matter much anyway, because I'm going to have drop cloth on the floor no matter what I do. But I don't want to waste a lot of plaster if 75% of what you're trying to put on the cheesecloth ends up going through the floor, then that's not a way to handle business.
I don't think it'd be anywhere near that. I mean, it's going to be minuscule compared to what you're putting on there in the first place, but it's still going to be some under there. Trust me. Whether it's thick plaster or whether it's real thin, the watery stuff that drips off of it when you pull it out. The problem with making the plaster too thick is it dries a lot quicker. Use cold water. Always use cold water. Don't use hot water. That'll make it harden up quicker. Use cold water and stir it in a little bit at a time. Don't just dump it in and mix it. It'll harden up quicker that way too. If you put a little bit in, stir it in, a little more, stir it in, and just get it thicker and thicker doing that, it'll last longer in a liquid form. But there again, I've tried it in many different ways, and you get plaster everywhere. I don't care how careful you think you're going to be.
Yeah,
well, I did it with dryer sheets. The only problem with the dryer sheets was they weren't very big. They're
tiny,
this wide by that long, and they're tiny, but they work good because they're fibers.
Heath had brought it up. Wooden shaper sheets. Have you thought about doing shaper sheet?
They say Woodland Scenics on them.
Yeah,
forget it.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to keep the cost with a layout as big as I have. I want to keep the cost.
And that's the thing with the pink foam board. If you've got a lot of stuff to do, pink foam board can get expensive.
Yep.
But if you use all the scraps,
depending on what you're doing, but it can get expensive. That's why I went with cardboard, because I had tons of cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
I took them out to the bandsaw, ripped them into 1-inch strips, and I had all the cardboard weaving material I needed. Yeah. And it worked great for me. So
just outside my office at work every day, there's probably 50 cardboard boxes that I could probably walk out with 5 or 10 with every day. I just haven't started doing it yet.
Well, between our Keurig boxes for coffee and my wife's wine boxes, we have plenty of boxes. So, but
Brenda likes wine, does she?
I actually prefer her wine boxes because they're a little bit thinner cardboard, so they flex a little easier when you're trying to weave them in. But I have plenty of cardboard, and at first I was using a razor blade to slide them out. It was tedious. But if you've got a bandsaw or you got
that's a good idea.
Bandsaw, you can make quick work of it. Put a fence on there and just rip it away.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Dennis, no matter what you do, we know you're going to test it and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. If you're close to any like distribution centers or your places where you work have pallets that come in with a lot of stuff on, a lot of times they will have a cardboard sheet called a slip sheet that sits between the pallet and the product. Those slip sheets are perfect thinness, just like what Claude was talking about. You got like a 4x4 sheet, but they're something that you could weave really easily. It's something that somebody could use pretty quick to make up a large territory of mountains on layout.
Yeah, and check behind places like Lowe's or Home Depot, Walmart, Sam's or Costco or places like that. Any place that gets big pallets of stuff in regularly usually have tons of that kind of material around.
But the thing is, Dennis lives in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't have none of that.
Well, as a matter of fact, where I work, which is 106 miles away from me, there is it's not Oscar Mayer, but it's similar to Oscar Mayer. Where I think they make hot dogs, because we got all kinds of cattle. If you go 100 miles of where I live, there's 5,000 feedlots. So there's a meat processing plant similar to Oscar Mayer. I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of what it's called. But they make either hot dogs or bologna or something along those lines, and that is within 50 miles of where I work. So
that must smell good.
To go there.
That must smell good. We used to have an Oscar Mayer
I've
here.
never been there other than to drive by on the interstate and go, oh, hey, look, they must make hot dogs there.
Yeah.
Probably smells better than the feedlots.
Oh, Bar S. Bar S.
Bar S.
Bar
Okay.
S. Yeah.
I know that brand.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's our hour.
Yep.
Wow,
That
went
one flew
that
by.
fast?
Very fast.
I was
Again,
wondering how we
reminder,
were
next
pull it
week,
off.
Sammy Carlisle is going to be with us with his Hereford subdivision HO layout, and you don't want to miss that because it's a really nice layout, and he's a lot of fun to talk to. He loves model railroading, and I think he's going to be a very good guest. So
And we're gonna have Corey Price of the KRP Models N-Scale Cajon subdivision. He wants to be on. He's just been working, so we're gonna have him as a guest too.
we'll get him scheduled up here pretty quick too. So, but next week is Sammy Carlisle, so you guys make sure you come back and see that. Anyway, everybody have a good weekend and a good week.
Yep.
Good week, everybody.
Take care. And Bill and Dennis and Jerry and Steve.
Gus.
Thanks,
And
guys.
Yeah.
And
Have a great day, guys.
maybe we'll get Shannon back on here eventually.
Next 6 months.
We'll see you guys later.
Take care, everybody.
Like.
See ya.